Hi guys, welcome to a video. So as most of you know, I've been reviewing and reacting to season 2 of the L Word, Generation Q. Who saw that coming? And I've been kind of enjoying it. No one saw that coming. And I actually thought it would be quite interesting to compare season 2 of Generation Q to season 1 of Generation Q, because I feel very differently about these two seasons. As a disclaimer, I'm going to try and be as fair and objective as possible in this video, but it will also obviously be somewhat subjective. I mean, does that cancel out the objective thing? What I mean is everybody's a critic, and it's very easy for me to sit here and kind of tear down somebody's work. I've also been on the receiving end of that quite a few times, and whilst it's fair for me to kind of discuss work and criticize work that's been put out there for public consumption, I do realize a lot of time and money and work has gone into a production like Generation Q. So even if I do drag it through the dirt sometimes, I do appreciate that a lot of work has gone into this production, and you know, I am grateful for lesbian content sometimes. Most of you will know I didn't really enjoy season 1 minus 1 or 2 scenes. I didn't hate season 1, but I definitely didn't enjoy it, and it very much fell short for me. You know, I wasn't on the edge of my seat wanting to know what happened next. Let's put it that way. In fact, I very nearly didn't watch season 2 of Generation Q just because of how disappointed I'd been with season 1. I mean, I was always going to kind of catch up with Bet Porter scenes and things like that, but I really wasn't sure that I was going to sit down and, you know, properly watch the episodes. And some of you called me out about that and said that I would, and you were completely right, and I was painted as the liar that I am, yes. Anyway, luckily I kind of changed my mind about everything. After seeing a clip of Bet and Gigi kissing, I was like, oh, it's appealing to me now. Look, I'm a simple lesbian. I can usually be won over with lesbianism. You know the rest. You know the rest. Okay, so within the context of comparing and contrasting, let's talk about season 1. Season 1 was the beginning of a very much anticipated reboot of the L Word, and naturally a lot of us were curious to see what had become of our favourite characters and our favourite show. We were also curious about the new cast, the new characters, you know, what this new show was going to look like. And of course, since the OG first aired, things have really changed. You know, for example, gay marriage is legal. There's a lot of new conversations happening around the LGBTQ community. Oh, a lot to work with. So let's start with what was good about season 1. Jennifer Beals, Leisha looking like a MILF, Sepedo Moafi, my wife, my baby daddy, the throuple, Nat and Gigi reconnecting, Tina returns after years of Laurel trying to distance herself from the L Word and declaring it was just a job, and then Bitter by Fletcher playing in the background. No. And also the production quality, you know? Yeah, so there were a few positive things about season 1, and as I say, I did find it watchable. It wasn't so bad I had to turn it off. However, I do feel like the general reception for season 1 from both critics and from fans was just kind of like meh, and it's no secret that I felt exactly the same way. Of course, everybody will have their own subjective feelings about season 1, but I felt let down with season 1 for a few reasons, and oh, here we go. Here comes the rant about season 1 of Generation Q that I've been promising. First of all, with season 1, I didn't like that they cherry-picked which cast members were going to come back into the show from the OG. Yes, Bet, Shane and Alice are pretty much the most popular characters from the OG. That's true, but honestly, it just felt very empty and a little bit off without the other OG characters there. It's like bringing just half of the cast of Friends back, or just 2 of the girls from Sex and the City. It just kind of doesn't really work. I felt like they had a chance to reimagine the OG show and maybe even kind of bring back characters from the dead, you know, create an alternate universe, but they chose chaos. Okay, you know, the OG characters were loved for a reason, and I think getting rid of half of them was No. Also, the characters they did bring back, so Bette, Shane and Alice, just felt unrecognizable to me. Actually, with the exception of Alice, they just felt like completely different people to me. You know, I felt like Bette had lost a lot of her bite, and it's like Shane hadn't grown at all back from when she was in her 20s, you know? And Shane is no longer in her 20s, and the women that Bette and Shane were hooking up with in season 1, it felt so forced. There was no organic connection between Bette and Felicity. And speaking of the cast, the next reason I kind of felt disappointed with season 1 was the new cast. It was, with the exception of Sepida, Stephanie and Gillian, I just really did not warm up to the new cast whatsoever. I just felt like most of the new cast really lacked the charisma and the chemistry that the OG cast had. And it was hard to really kind of A, like the new characters, B, care about the new characters, and C, enjoy watching any of the new characters, really. And I just want to kind of highlight here that this is not an attack on the actors themselves. This was the fault of the showrunner and the people who were responsible for the casting. More time and care should have been taken with the characters that they were creating and who they were putting in those roles. And also the characters that they were pairing up together for hookups and relationships, which leads me on to the lack of chemistry in season 1. I would say the only sparks of chemistry I saw in season 1 were between Nat and Gigi and Bette and Tina. And Bette and Tina are divorced. We'll get to that in a bit. I mean, maybe the throuple as well. There was a bit of, yeah, there were sparks happening in the throuple. There were. But as far as kind of relationships go, yeah, it was literally just Nat and Gigi who had any kind of a connection or chemistry. I mean, that was it. Sophie and Danny were so mismatched. Like, it was dry. It was really dry. That was supposed to be the main juice, and it was juiceless. Next up is the writing. Both the dialogue and the storylines were very poor. They were bad. Most of the narrative either felt reductive or it felt very manufactured. There was also a distinct lack of kind of comedy. So not only were the storylines unenjoyable, but there was also no comic relief and no chemistry, and yes, and Bette and Tina are now divorced in this reboot. Great. What was the reason for this? And I'm not talking about the reason that Tina gave in season 1 as to why she hit the road. I'm talking about, why was it after 6 seasons of will they, won't they, back and forth in the OG, why are we back here? Like, why did you throw that happily ever after into the garbage? I would like to know the reason. Bette could have given an explanation and we could have all just kind of moved on from it, you know, we could have just gotten over it. But they brought Tina back just to prolong the situation. Okay. Overall, season 1 was watchable, but with the exception of Nat and Gigi and Bette and Tina, I felt like the whole of season 1 completely lacked authenticity, heart, connection, and yeah, it left me very disappointed. But then came season 2. So going into season 2, I literally had no expectations, but then there came that little clip of Bette and Gigi, and it was a rainstorm in the desert, because finally here was a couple with actual chemistry, with a spark of chemistry. And not only was there a spark of chemistry, these two characters are interesting and they're interacting. And it was then I decided I got a little time for season 2, you know? And I'm glad that I gave season 2 a chance, because holy smokes, what a crazy roller coaster of lesbianism it has been. But even though I personally enjoyed season 2, how does it compare to season 1? Well, let's start with the positives about season 2. Well, let's see. There's Gigi, Sepida Moafi, Gigi, Bette and Gigi, Danny and Gigi, expensive beef noodles, Rose Trochet. Oh, and Gigi. Yeah. Firstly, in season 2, they finally started pairing characters together who had actual chemistry. After the drought of season 1, we got to enjoy a nice cool class of Bette and Gigi, of Danny and Gigi, of Gigi sipping her tea, of Bette and Pippa. We're sipping on it, sipping on it. Yeah, I mean, it was just finally interesting. Let's put it that way. They also brought in quite decent additions to the cast in season 2. Carrie was one of these additions. seasons, and I just found her very much enjoyable to watch on screen. She was very different from the other characters, and I especially enjoyed her interactions with Bet. It's interesting to see how different characters kind of interact with each other. And Pippa was also another great addition. I mean, Vanessa Williams is a fantastic actor. She definitely had chemistry with Jennifer Beals. And again, Pippa was just an interesting character in herself. It made it so much more interesting to watch. You know, these changes made a huge difference to season 2. Secondly, I feel like the drama has somewhat improved in season 2. I'm not saying it's high quality, intelligent drama, but it's been enough to keep me interested and actually look forward to new episodes. Like, I need to know what happens with Bet. I need to know what happens with Gigi. The new cast have also slightly grown on me in season 2, and I mean very slightly. Danny is a good example of this. It could just be because, you know, she is dating my wife, Gigi, but I think Danny has kind of shone through because she's been placed next to Gigi, and that's why I think it's been very beneficial for the show to kind of mix up the dynamics and the interactions between characters, because I feel like when there's a genuine connection between two actors, that translates on screen, and I feel like we're seeing a lot more of that in season 2. Maribel also really shone through for me a lot more in season 2. You know, I really enjoyed her comedic timing. She made me laugh, and again, this was just due to kind of like mixing up who the characters interact with, which has allowed some of the new cast to kind of shine through a bit more. They also brought in Rose Trochet to direct an episode, and in my opinion, episode 7 was the best episode out of season 2. I think Rose Trochet she's such a fantastic director. You could really see the difference with her directing skills in episode 7, and yeah. However, despite the fact that I enjoyed season 2 a lot more than season 1, and I feel like season 2 has been more interesting, there's still definitely room for improvement. I still found a lot of the dialogue and writing in season 2 very questionable and sometimes very awkward. You know, a lot of the kind of core issues of season 1 are still very present in season 2, but to be honest, it's too late to really start over with certain things, and so it just is what it is. And I have to say, the show still feels to me like an alternate universe or some kind of fan fiction rather than a continuation from the OG show. What I've had to learn with this reboot is just to enjoy it as a show on its own and not make comparisons to the OG, and also just forget everything that happened in the OG and treat this as completely separate, because since I've done that, I've enjoyed Generation Q a lot more. You know, you just kind of have to enjoy this show for what it is, and I think in both season 1 and season 2, some of the pacing has been a little bit off as well. It's sometimes hard to get absorbed in things and enjoy things because sometimes things are just so choppy, and again, things get dropped in out of nowhere. A good example of this is Nat deciding she was polyamorous. Like at the end of season 1, you know, Nat declares that Alice is the only one for her and blah, blah, blah. And then in season 2, out of nowhere, she suddenly decides that she's polyamorous, and yeah, this is why it's hard to kind of take the show seriously when the writers don't really take care with character development and with the relationships. And I feel like that has crossed over into season 2. I also really wasn't feeling Alice's and Shane's storylines in season 2. I probably preferred Alice's storyline in season 1, to be honest, but Shane felt kind of aimless to me in both season 1 and season 2. I'm not really a fan of Shane, but I never found her kind of like boring or unwatchable in the OG, and in Generation Q there's just something missing. I can't really describe it, and the same with Alice. It's just difficult to get invested in Alice's storylines in Generation Q outside of the throuple. But Alice's wardrobe has definitely improved, so there's that. As far as Bet is concerned, I've actually really been enjoying Bet in season 2. I love Bet, but she just felt so unbalanced. Bet has always had negative traits, but I feel like in season 2 it just kind of spiraled out of control a little bit, and there wasn't many moments of redemption for her really. In season 2, I also still feel like the show is in an awkward integration point between the new cast and the old cast. I felt like a lot of the new characters were quite isolated at times, so there wasn't really much of a group dynamic going on. I still feel like overall a lot of the new cast are missing that organic chemistry and connection that the OG cast had going on. And like I've said, I understand that it's two separate shows, but at the same time, Generation Q is clearly trying to follow the same formula that the L Word had, just with a different group of people, and it hasn't really worked. Yeah, so as a conclusion, in my own opinion, I feel like season 2 has been a vast improvement upon season 1. Season 2 is certainly a lot better in terms of entertainment and in terms of chemistry. I think the writing and essence of season 2 has remained quite similar to season 1, but exploring new dynamics between different characters, putting characters together who actually have chemistry, and adding new and interesting characters to the mix has definitely elevated season 2 above season 1. And whilst I'm not claiming season 2 to be high art, season 2 has definitely succeeded in making me a fan of Generation Q. It has. Ugh, I don't know, that feels wrong to say. Maybe I'm not a fan of Generation Q. But I am enjoying Generation Q. I am. And they should give Sepida Moafi a pay raise. Yeah. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Let me know how you feel about season 2 in comparison to season 1 of Generation Q. Did you enjoy season 2 more than season 1? Did you prefer season 1? Do you love them both? Do you hate them both? Yeah, let me know how you feel. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.